Hey everyone, and welcome to 121 in Flux. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we talk about movies on this show. And this episode is a semi-special one because it is our monthly voting episode. Our patrons vote for one movie a month for us to talk about, and the theme for the vote this month was films by Christopher Nolan because of course he's got Dunkirk coming out later this week, in fact. Well, it's later this week. If you're on Patreon, you're getting this a week early. If you're not on Patreon, then it just came out that weekend. So, yeah. But, yeah, so Dunkirk's coming out, and we wanted to do a Nolan film, so we put up the vote on Patreon, and they picked Memento, which, of course, was probably his first big movie. It's not his first movie, of course. Following, which is his really sort of low-budget movie that he made a few years before that, which is pretty good, by the way. We'll probably do that someday anyway. Probably do all these someday anyway. But Memento on the vote, so we're going to do Memento. Of course, it's the film starring Guy Pearce. It's a film that is notorious because it goes backwards. So very, in terms of pitches to people to like try and convince them to watch something. Why should you watch Memento? It goes backwards, and then people go, "Oh, what? Say that again."
See how something goes backwards and forwards. That always gets them interested.
Yeah. So yeah, we're going to talk about Memento. We'll start spoiler free as we typically do, and then we will warn you before. Usually somewhere in the middle, usually just before halfway. We'll warn you about spoilers before we actually go into that. So don't worry about that. So full spoilers for not full spoilers. Sorry, what am I doing? No. We'll warn you later about spoilers. We're still spoiler free. I'm on autopilot. All right, I'm on autopilot. So we're going to talk about Memento. And I like this a lot. I love it even. Like, before we even start talking about details, it's fantastic. I assume you like it as well.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So, what is Memento? Memento is a film about a character who suffers from a memory condition. Specifically, he cannot create new memories. He remembers his life up until a point, up until a certain instance, which was the death of his wife, in which he was also injured. And the injury he got caused this new condition where he can't develop new memories. So he'll be fine for maybe. I mean, it varies. I mean, I think that in the film they specify it as being about him losing focus. Once he loses focus and sort of loses track of what he's doing, that's when it kind of resets. But basically, he will keep forgetting what he's just been doing and has been doing since the moment he had the illness or at the injury that caused the illness. And that's kind of it. So really what the movie does is because it wants to emulate that for the audience, the idea that we don't know what he's just been doing, it goes backwards. So we start at the end of the story and we keep going back. And that way we never know what he just did either. And it keeps us in the same place as the character.
It's clever because every scene essentially opens with him waking up or realizing that he's just remembering again, like he's just started afresh. And he's blank on what's happened before, of course, by the nature of it. But so are we. It's very clever.
Yeah, it's. I think when it comes to narrative structure, this is obviously a very extreme concept in terms of narrative structure. Obviously, some directors play with, we'll tell things out of order, we'll jump around, and we'll have some flashbacks. Whereas this is no, we have a very dedicated idea that this is just going to keep going backwards. And obviously, there's some stuff going forwards as well. There's some intercut stuff in black and white. You sort of quickly get the idea that that's going forwards, and at some point it's going to meet the coloured stuff in the middle somewhere, or towards the end perhaps.
The middle of the story.
Middle of the story, yeah, end of the movie, but middle of the story. So it sets up this puzzle that you're kind of piecing together, and you're slowly getting more information throughout each of the scenes as to, okay, what's going on, who are these characters, why does he have this condition, what is his mission, so on and so forth. And a big theme of the movie, or a big technique of the movie, is that he writes down a lot of notes, some of which are on his body's tattoos, with facts on it that he needs to remember. He takes Polaroids of people, because this is made in 2000, before taking pictures with your phone was a normal thing. It's funny how different this would be if it was made just.
But he'd have to leave his phone unlocked because he'd never remember the passcode.
That is true, unless it was something that was really obvious, like he's like a year that he would already mean something to him.
Yeah, or just get a fingerprint one.
Oh yeah, if it was present day, yeah,
it was now,
one. Yeah. I was thinking like if it was just made 10 years later, even it would already be so different because come 2010, it's phones everywhere. But so that's how the movie plays out, and it plays a lot with your expectations. There is some humor in there sprinkled throughout. There's a couple of really funny moments that really crack me up.
Yeah, a lot of the humor comes from the scene opening with whatever, and then when the next scene ends and you realize what had happened.
Yeah, either that or it'll be one of the other characters having fun with him because he can't remember things, and that'll
Yeah.
be maybe a little bit of source of humor. You get some of that. The film itself, though, in terms of like the overall tone, obviously it's a very sort of broody tone. It's got a very sort of melancholic vibe to it because it's obviously it's this guy who basically wants revenge because his wife was raped and murdered. So naturally, it's not a fun-going, happy-go-lucky movie. It's just kind of, it's not ultra dark, but it's definitely got this air of kind of sadness about it, where he's constantly trying to achieve this goal, but he's also constantly dealing with the fact that he's lost his wife. And this is one of the things that I think the film explores that I find really fascinating, is the idea that he can't mourn and get over it because it's fresh every time
It's perpetually just happened to him.
yeah, it keeps just revealing itself to him, and
Well,
he has to deal with it.
It's like that old saying, time heals all wounds.
But yeah, if you don't experience time because you keep resetting your memory, then how can you possibly heal? Yeah,
exactly. It's clever. I think that's one of the movie's biggest strengths, how everything plays into that idea.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because I think it's very easy to look at this movie if you hear about it and go, oh, it goes backwards. Oh, that sounds like a gimmick, and and arguably it is, but it's a pretty damn good one because everything about it aids the story.
Yeah, I don't mind gimmicks when they have a function, and this does because it puts you in his mindset.
Yeah,
That's it. Like you don't know where he's been, neither does he. That's it. You're on the same page as him at all times.
it puts you in his mindset. It also makes for a good mystery element because it reveals more stuff as you go. There's some stuff that's set up very early on about okay, because he takes these photographs and you keep seeing them pop up. You're like, okay, where was that one taken? Why did he write that thing on it? Because he writes little notes on them to say, oh, trust this person, don't trust that person, that kind of thing. And it keeps you guessing, like, oh, where was that taken? Why? And one of the photographs specifically has something scribbled out, and it's like, oh, what's scribbled out? Why is it scribbled out?
Yeah. What was it?
Yeah. And it plays with these ideas, like, you know, who can he trust? Can he trust anyone? A big thing about the character, Leonard's his name, played by Guy Pearce, he doesn't like to talk to people on the phone because part of who he is, he has to kind of look people in the eye because he has to trust his instincts if he can trust someone or not because he never remembers if he can. He can't trust his memory, so he has to trust something else. And, you know, we learn about his backstory, how he used to be an insurance investigator. He used to try and see through people's bullshit, and he says that helps him now and that kind of thing. So a lot of that plays into it. But it's just like, you know, who can he trust and all that kind of thing. And that's really what a big sort of mechanic of the movie is, and what keeps it constantly engaging in a kind of, you know, just in a basic sort of suspense and thrilling kind of way. Like, just on the surface, that's the drama of what's happening. But then there's all these undertones of stuff we'll get to in the spoilers that I don't want to even bring up in this section because it's just pure spoilerville. But it's a really fun story that's. And I think looking at his previous film Following and then looking forward to something like The Prestige and even Dunkirk, what I'm hearing about that is that's got that plays with narrative structure as well. It really feels like it's something Nolan himself wants to sort of play with and like experiment with as he's gone through his career. And he's like, okay, I want to try and, you know, shake this up. How does changing this around make for a more engaging story? And it's really interesting. In fact, one of my criticisms, not of the movie itself, but of some of the DVDs and Blu-rays come with an extra on it where it'll play the film in chronological order. And I cannot fathom why you would want to ever watch this in chronology because it would take away from.
I think just as a curiosity more than anything. I think that's the only reason.
But you agree that it would take away all of the drama?
Oh, absolutely. It wouldn't be the same film at all. But I think it would be just interesting to see. Not as it wouldn't be as good a film, of course. It wouldn't be the same thing at all. But I think it'd just be interesting to experience it that way.
I think by its nature to keep it simple enough for us to understand going backwards. By its own nature,
it would almost be boring going forwards.
Yeah, it has to be kept relatively simple. I think the scenes themselves, obviously there is a flow overall, but I think a lot of the scenes themselves function really well because they work on their own as their own little 2-minute story.
Yeah.
And it keeps it that simple. But there's these start and end points that link them together. But because I think if it was a really complicated story, it would be hard to follow. And that's not to say the movie's simple. It's not. It's very complicated because of all these other factors. But the actual core story is actually really. If you actually sat down and wrote it out in chronological order and said, okay, this happens and this happens and this happens, it's pretty straight. It's not.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's okay because it's made inventive by a lot of these other things. Of course, mainly the structure. So
Yeah.
it's really good. One thing I'd forgotten, I always forget how much I like it, is the music. I
Yeah.
really like the score to this.
Yeah, it's got a great minimalist thing going on.
Minimalist, and like I say, that feeling of melancholy and sadness is in there, but with like a momentum that's sort of like he's got a drive, but it comes from this really sad place. Uh,
Yeah.
it's very much there. So I really like the score. It always puts me right in the mood because it always plays over the opening titles. The film starts with the slow, the Polaroid developing sort of backwards. Actually, it's going
Yeah.
backwards. It starts off developed and it fades back to black or white or whatever, and that's kind of how we start the movie. We actually start the movie with a scene playing in reverse, which
Well, yeah, it just tells you it's just to go, look, this is going backwards, so that's in your mind. Then when you watch two scenes, you go, oh, it's backwards.
yeah. I often wonder actually when you tell someone the movie goes backwards and then they watch it and they see the opening scene, they go, "What do you mean it literally goes backwards the whole time?" I often wonder if people have that misconception until it gets to the next couple of scenes.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that backwards scene that the sound effects still play forwards.
Hmm.
Uh, I guess it's just because it's so you can place it. Yeah, like
Probably.
because it's you can see it going backwards and it's fine, but if you hear something going backwards, it's completely different.
Yeah, it may just be a simple case of it's so we still understand what the sounds are,
Yeah,
even though you can
yeah,
see them, and so that may be a silly statement, but it's so you don't end up sounding like you're in like Twin Peaks. Like they
yeah,
still want it
exactly.
to sound normal. So if you played it backwards, it would sound really because even words, if you play a word backwards, it
I
sounds.
think there is one. I think the guy shouts, and that's backwards, like just one word.
Yeah, well,
But
that's probably because
yeah,
that'd be really obvious to tell that it's not going in the right direction. Whereas everything else, your mind just kind of makes it
yeah,
fit. Like
yeah, exactly.
so I think that's fair. Um, so that cast very good. Guy Pearce plays Leonard. He has a tough job because he has a character who again has to kind of reset constantly.
Yeah, yeah.
Essentially, he has to play him reacting to different things, but from the same starting point,
That's it, because he has to
repeatedly.
react to the same people over and over again, but not change, but at the same time keep it fresh.
Keep it fresh. Obviously, context is a big difference. Like if the character greets them at a door, or does they greet them already hiding in their car? Like those two different scenarios play out very differently. Uh,
Yeah.
Carrie-Anne Moss is in here as a character called Natalie. Um, I can't really say much about what who she
No,
is for
she's
spoilers.
fascinating.
Yeah, she's definitely interesting. Joe Pantoliano, or Joey Pants, as he's known amongst friends. Not that I'm his friends, but it's easier to say, so I just steal it because it's an easier name. I like him a lot. I've been a fan of him. Interesting that both of those actors were in the Matrix just a couple of years before this.
Yeah.
So that's just a sort of weird coincidence. But I actually know him growing up. He was in the Goonies. He's got a part in the Goonies, so I kind of
Okay.
he's an actor that I've just seen pop up over the years, but he's really good. Um, and that's kind of our main trio. There's some obviously other bit parts that come in here or out, but those are our main three. We're with Guy Pearce, I think, in every single scene. There's not a scene of this movie that he is not a part of. It never cuts away to someone else. It's always from his perspective.
Yeah, I can't think of any.
Nah, there's not. It always sticks with him. So he very much is the star of the whole thing. Like he carries the whole thing on his back. I think if he was giving a terrible performance, the entire thing would just completely crumble.
Yeah, absolutely, because so much of it revolves around him, like you say, that it's got to be great. Otherwise, it's just it's noticeable if there's anything wrong.
Yeah, but luckily he does give this very nuanced performance where, like you say, he's reacting the same way, but there's just these subtle little differences depending on like
Yeah,
where he is, how the person's talking to them, that
exactly.
kind of thing. And then the movie plays with that as well. It deliberately plays with multiple introductions of the same character to him.
Yeah, and do you know what? Something else I really like that he does really well is there's these voiceovers every so often, like
Mm.
just his thoughts, and I think he does those really well. Like they
Yeah,
add a lot.
yeah. Worth mentioning though, that is only in the black and white segments. That's never in
Yeah,
the backwards segments. So yeah. Um, Yeah, I'm just trying to think of what else to talk about without spoilers. Cast's good, music's good. It's very well shot. It feels very cinematic. Uh,
Yeah,
I I think some of the simple little tricks that Nolan uses to feel like it's kind of like, obviously we start and end the scenes with things we've already seen, because we always start one
yes,
scene with the end of the previous scene, or vice versa, whatever way around. It's just confusing to think about in my head. But it does this, or and even just something simple as establishing a location, because we constantly return to the same locations. There's a certain house we always return to. There's a sort of abandoned building we keep going back to. There's a motel that we obviously keep going back to. It's where Leonard's staying. And each one, especially some of these places and some of the cars as well, we keep coming back to, because it keeps playing with this idea that certain items and places are important, and they're
yeah,
documented by Leonard, so they're important to us. But even just the way the filmmaking, like when they go to the abandoned building the first time, the camera does the slow track in. It just lets you know that the place is important. It's not just on a location; it's somewhere of significance, and it is a very significant place. It's significant multiple times throughout the movie.
yeah. I think it's a very refined piece of camera work. It's rarely doing anything fancy, but it's very much confident in what it is doing, and it's subtle movements that sell it most of the time.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of close-ups.
Yeah,
A lot of close-ups, because we stay really close to Leonard, and the camera work kind of emulates that by making us feel like it is a personal story. It's constantly on him, constantly on his face, constantly on his hand. 'Cause obviously he's got these tattoos with memories on them, so it constantly gives us close-ups of him in a variety
yeah.
of ways. So so that's a big. So the stylistic sort of approach to it is very very much like that throughout. Both, and I think even the black and white segments as well. That goes even more in close. I feel like that was almost entirely tight shots.
Yeah, it was because most of the black and white stuff is in like one room,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's very much like you barely even see the edges of the room at most times. You're very much just on him.
Yeah, it's in his face. It's on his hand. Is maybe he's doing something, that kind of stuff. But it is very tight with everything. Um, so yeah, I think it's very good. I like the ending. The ending opens a lot of thoughts up.
I think what I love about the ending is that it completely changes the start of the movie, which of course is the end of the story,
Yeah,
but it completely changes everything that you've learned the whole movie. It's like, okay, it's all different.
yeah. It makes you go back, and it's a movie that really benefits from repeat viewings, because the second time you go into it with all this knowledge, and you're looking for all these hints and little ideas and all these things, and I think that really helps it. But so that's quite spoilers, and let's go full spoilers for Memento. And I think the first thing we're probably going to talk about is how the ending changes everything, and how it just because
Yeah,
it really affects things. It really, because throughout the movie he tells you this story of Sammy Jenkins. There's a tattoo on his hand that says "Remember Sammy Jenkins." He tells everyone the stories about Sammy Jenkins. Sammy Jenkins was a man with the same condition as him. Whilst he was working insurance, investigating insurance, he investigated his claim. He was trying to see if he was faking. So he did. He spoke to him, he had all his tests, and he uses him. It's a really smart way of doing some exposition. It's like, okay, there was someone else like me, and I'm going to explain what he was like, and that's how that's how, even though I shouldn't have new memories, I understand what's going on with me, because I remember him.
yeah,
So it explains it. He couldn't make new memories, like more than a few minutes. He wouldn't be able to watch the TV. Like, so he liked commercials because they were short, all that kind of idea. Talks about how he was with his wife. He was a doctor. He could give her insulin shots without even thinking about it. But so anything he could do, anything he knew how to do beforehand, but he couldn't make new memories. And he talks about investigating him and all the rest of it. And he always brings them up. He like so often where, like, when he mentions it to other characters, they go, "I'm sick of hearing of Sammy. Like, stop telling me
yeah.
about Sammy." Like, it's a constant thread throughout the movie. And likewise, we hear and see kind of quick flashes of the event that killed his wife. There was intruders in the house. He woke up out of bed, went to the bathroom, and she was had a bag over her head, and he gets his head hit. And he shoots one guy, but the other one who hits him gets away. And that's who this John G that he's been trying to track down, because he's got some key facts. He knows he's a John or a James, last name G. He knows he's white, knows he's a male, and a few other things. And obviously, one of the big plot points of the movie is he's got a license plate number as well,
Yeah.
which is a new bit of information, which we see him getting tattooed towards the end of the film. So it sets up all this stuff, and it really, I mean, I think first of all, if you were going to critique it without the reveal at the end, or without what it hints at the end, you'd maybe say, "Oh, it's a bit coincidental that he knew a guy that had had the same condition as
Yeah,
him." It's a bit coincidental, but obviously the ending really sets up this idea. It really makes you ponder this because I think the whole movie is really about is he like he's constantly testing the how much he can trust everyone else, how
yeah.
trustworthy is everyone around him. He never stops to ponder, am I trustworthy to myself? And
Right, because
that's
it starts early on. He says, you learn to trust your handwriting because you have to, because it's only yourself that you can trust. So he is completely confident that whatever he's told himself is the truth, because as far as he's concerned, why wouldn't it be?
yeah, and it's the big theme in the movies that do you lie to yourself to get through something, and all these kind of ideas. And so the movie, like, Teddy, Joe Pantoliano's character, who's a cop who's been sort of, I mean, he's kind of ambiguous throughout the movie as to what his purpose is, like what his intentions are, what he's using Leonard for. We know it says don't trust his lies or don't believe his lies on the back of his photo. So
Yeah,
obviously,
so we're always doubting him the entire movie.
yeah, we're always doubting him. And the funny thing is he's probably the most truthful person at the end of the film. Like, he actually gives us what I have no reason to doubt is accurate, because it feels that Leonard doubts it because it's stuff he doesn't want to believe. He doesn't want to hear it.
Absolutely. I think there's even a little filmmaking trick that confirms it pretty much.
Oh yeah. There's a couple of little techniques towards the end that kind of
Yeah.
again lead you in a certain direction as to what to believe and what not to believe. But he's like, yeah, I'm a cop, and how are you going to even know when you get revenge? How are you going to even know when you've killed this John G? And he's like, no, I'll know. I'll just deep down, I'll just know. He's like, see, I thought you would too, but you didn't. And it's like, oh shit. And it obviously this is a big thing, and it's like, wait, what? And you get the idea that Teddy's been using him for various jobs because he knows he can trick him into doing this because he'll just believe it and he'll want the revenge, and like it'll give him that feeling of satisfaction again for however fleeting brief a moment it might be before he's back to being forgetful. But it's fascinating stuff because he talks about how it was Leonard's wife that was diabetic, and how this whole John G business, like it really implies that he, like, there was no John G, there was no second person, not really.
Yeah.
He killed his wife, not intentionally, but he killed his wife through the diabetic medication, the insulin, and to get over it, he basically has conditioned himself with repetition to remember Sammy Jenkins, remember all this stuff, writing on his body, John G raped and murdered your wife. It almost makes you it really puts the question in your mind: was that a lie that he told himself?
Yeah, the idea of this has been tattooed onto himself. Why would he do that if he wasn't absolutely certain? But then it's because he wants to believe it.
He wants to. Yeah, he needs a boogeyman that's not him. He needs someone that he can chase after.
Exactly.
And he doesn't have to feel the guilt for it because he's got this enemy. And it does really make you ponder that it's not necessarily that he can't actually make new memories entirely. Like, it's not entirely, like, clearly he has repeated enough stuff often enough that certain elements are...
They're sticking.
They're sticking after a while, yeah. Like you say, repetition and... Yeah. That kind of idea, like eventually stuff does start to stick. The fact, because even that's a big thing that he tells us throughout the phone call narration, throughout the black and white segments. He tells, through repetition, through routine, you pick things up. So it's when he wakes up, he always knows to check these pockets for photos. Like, that's a new thing. It's not like he did that before he had this condition. This
right,
is
he has taught himself to do that.
Yeah, he always checks the drawer beside the bed, and he expects a Bible. He even says, like, at one point he wakes up in the middle of the movie, he's like, oh, there'll be a Bible in here. He expects it.
Yeah.
So again, he's clearly taking in some things with enough repetition. So the idea that he has, and obviously there's little glimpses in the final scene as he's driving of his wife hugging him, and he already has some tattoos.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's clearly that's like the sign that says no, there's truth to this. But even before that scene, as Teddy's telling him all this stuff, and it all kind of makes sense, especially when the scene concludes and he makes his decision. You know what? if I'm going to lie to myself to make myself feel better, I can do it with you. You're a John G. And that's when he writes on the back of it, "Don't believe his lies." And it's when he looks at his license plate, like, because that's the thing throughout all this movie. And then on the first viewing, of course, you're thinking, "Oh, where did he get this license plate? Where did that come from?" And it's literally he just sees it on his car and says, "I'm going to hunt you," and
Yeah,
writes
it's
it down.
like it just out of spite for telling him the truth, basically.
Yeah,
And there's things that confirm to us the truth. Like, why else would he? He has no benefit to lying. There's that shot, where he's in the home, and you cut and you see him there instead.
yeah.
So as there's enough there, and obviously to do with the wife, and it's like there's enough there that we go, yeah, we believe this. Why wouldn't we?
Yeah,
But
'cause
he just can't accept it.
it goes back to that moment when he pinches her leg, and then it's like the same spot where he jabs her with the injection, and you all these little things sort of start to add up, and it's the idea of this guilt, and she was the one who was depressed because he couldn't remember things, and maybe that adds to the guilt that he got that feeling from her as well that he describes with because it does sound like there was a Sammy, perhaps because he mentions that Sammy didn't have a wife. Teddy says that.
Yeah, so I do think there was a Sammy.
Yeah, which is interesting because I'd forgotten he'd said that, and as I was watching it this time, I was like, "Oh, maybe Leonard is just Sammy, like that is his name."
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
he says that at the end, and I'm like, "Okay, maybe not. Maybe okay,
I
there was a Sammy."
considered that as well because it's been a while since I'd watched it, and
Yeah.
I didn't remember that exact line either. And but then I was like, but he remembers too much about his life to have changed his name. I think to change details, I get,
Yeah,
but to change his entire identity seems like a lot.
yeah. He's basically merged his past with Sammy's to form this story to give himself a boogeyman to chase down. And from the sounds of it, he's killed several people named John G.
Yeah, this guy at the end was just the latest.
Yeah, he did the first one, and then obviously at the start of the movie, the actual latest is Teddy. Like, that's
Yeah.
the actual latest in terms of chronological order. So no, it's fascinating stuff because it ultimately turns the movie into it's a story about lying to yourself to not deal with your own guilt. That's ultimately what the movie turns into. It's to make him feel better about his condition because his condition got his wife killed,
Yeah,
and it's to make him feel better about that. And it's actually a really fascinating. It's a really dark story.
yeah, it is. And I think it's saying how destructive for people around you that can be if you're not honest with yourself. Because this Teddy is maybe not a good person. He's morally
Oh yeah,
corrupt.
well he's trying to do a drug dealer out of 200 grand. So
Sure, yeah. So he's definitely a bit of a corrupt cop, but he's not evil. I don't think. It never presents him as that. Untrustworthy, sure.
he's a weasel.
Yeah, but probably not someone who deserves to be killed.
Probably not. I mean, whatever. I think it's not really important if he deserves it or not. Really, it's not really the.
Well, no, but I get that the idea is that he's so convinced of lying to himself that it literally just costs another person their life that didn't really have to. And just because he couldn't be honest and couldn't accept the truth.
Yeah, so instead of just killing his wife, he's now killed countless, however many people.
We'll never know.
And it's some of the ideas it plays with that I really like. I really like the idea that he has no idea how long it's been, because
Yeah.
I think that's a really fascinating idea. I love the scene where he goes out to burn her stuff, and he says, and this is my favourite line in the entire movie, is "I can't remember to forget you." That is a fantastic line.
It is.
It's a fantastic line because it just turns the words against each other. It's just a beautiful sort of almost contradiction of words. It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
It's great. So a good name for a song.
It is, isn't it?
Should be a
I'm
song.
surprised
called
no
that.
one's stolen that.
Good name for a song. My favourite funny line in the movie, actually, my favourite comedy moment, is actually it's when Leonard says, "This gun must be his." He's talking about, I think, Dodd. He's like, "This gun must be his. They shouldn't let someone with my condition walk around with a gun." And he walks off screen, and Terry's like, "I should definitely hope not." That just cracked me up. I thought it was a really funny line.
No, there is a lot of humour in little moments like that.
Yeah, that was good stuff. Obviously, that scene where he thinks he's chasing Dodd, and then he realizes, oh wait, no, he's chasing me. Like, so there's some humor peppered throughout to sort of lighten the mood here or there. But one of the things I love about the ending and the sort of the reveal that he is probably just lying to himself, and everything that he's been doing has been a lie, is, again, it comes back to that when I was talking about the music and how that idea of melancholy and sadness is kind of there, and because throughout the whole movie it feels like it's a rip roaring thriller where he's after the killer of his wife, but the sadness kind of that underscores it all doesn't feel quite right to that story. It feels like there's something more to it.
That's it, because you always just assume it's, oh, his grief's still fresh because he can't move on.
Yeah,
But then it's at the end where you learn it's so much more than just grief.
yeah.
It's the regret.
It's regret. It's guilt. It's everything. Like
And
I think what makes it so beautiful as well, in a really dark way, is how complex it is, because it is so many mixed things. It's shame about his own condition, because you see, like the one time we see him get physically angry in the entire story, it's when Natalie calls him a retard, and she says a lot of nasty things about his wife as well. But she repeatedly calls him a freak and uses all these harsh words and like makes him feel small because of his condition, makes him feel like he can't function. And it was like, and there's like a couple of times as well when he's talking about how the cops didn't listen to him afterwards because he had brain damage. He has like a little, it's almost a comedy line where he says, "It's amazing what a little brain damage does to your credibility."
Yeah, and you know that moment with Natalie where she calls him a freak, it adds so much to the opening of the movie, because you know the last thing that Teddy says to him is he calls him a freak, and that's the moment where he kills him.
That's right. Yeah, you're right.
And it's like it adds so much to that, where it's, you know, it's like, oh, now he's kind of justified it to himself in the moment.
Yeah, one of the things I love about the whole him creating the mystery for himself is, you know, when Teddy says, "Oh, like when I gave you that police file with everything in it, it was full." And you know, earlier on in the movie when we see Leonard go through it, there's like redacted segments that have been blacked out.
Yeah, I think it says like 12 pages or something.
Yeah, well, there's 12 pages, but there's also just like pages with bits missing as well. You see him as he's going through it. There's stuff that's been removed, and it is, and like he brings up, like you did that yourself. That's what it implies, that like you actually went through this and gave yourself. You took away the information that disproved anything you didn't want to believe, and you created this wild goose chase.
Do you know what I love about the, you know, we're talking about the feelings of, you know, guilt and regret, and it's like, but he genuinely did have that illness. He didn't know what he was doing. He didn't realize that he was killing her. But that guilt there of something he had no control over has turned him into an active killer multiple times.
Yeah. I love the idea as well that it didn't just redact all this at one time. Like every single, because we've seen like with Teddy, the path that set him to Teddy was just one little thing. There's a license plate and then one thing written in the photograph. I like the idea that every time he's taken another page out or he's redacted another paragraph, it's because, oh, I want X person to be the target or something like that.
It's basically every time he's got someone out of the picture, it's like, right, I need to get rid of one thing.
Yeah.
To make it a little bit more vague every time, so that there's always someone else that can fit the profile.
Yeah, I think I like that idea. It's really good. We should mention as well, you get that brief shot where you see her alive, like the wife. You know, because we keep seeing her with the bag over her head in the bathroom, and then at the end when Teddy's telling him all this stuff, you see her actually open her eyes, and there's a quick glimpse of that as well earlier on before all this stuff comes up, where you see her open her like you see her blink her eye behind the bag. Which is a little bit of foreshadowing, which is pretty cool. And we mentioned the scene where he burns all the stuff, but the scene before that, or well, technically after that, given that we're going backwards, with the prostitute who he hires just to, because he talks a lot about her waking up and the bed's cold, so he kind of knows deep down she's not there anymore. So he hires the prostitute to lie in the bed so it's still warm, and he feels it, and he sees the clock, and then he goes into the bathroom, and that's when he just sees the hooker like doing cocaine.
Yeah.
I like that scene.
It's a powerful moment because it's like, you know, he's hired someone just to relive his worst memory.
And do you know what my favourite part about it, though? Is that it's convincing to him, because for him it does feel like, oh, she is still alive, like all that nightmare is not real. And
it makes it feel like it was just a dream, basically.
Yeah. And then he goes over to the door, and I love, not only does he have that crushing feeling of that is real, it's this self-anger, because he did this, he tricked himself. He actually paid this woman to trick him so he could feel that for a minute. But then he's felt the loss all over again because, oh shit, it's real.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
it's really self-deprecating, isn't it?
It's fantastic stuff. Let's talk about the Natalie scene as well. Actually, I love that she uses his illness against him. Is that because obviously you see the scene where she comes in because again we're going in reverse. She comes in, she's got the bruised face, the bloody lip, and she's like, "Oh, this was Dodd. Dodd did this to me," and that's what convinces Leonard that he's going to deal with Dodd for her. He's going to go and kill or
Yeah.
beat up Dodd or whatever he's planning to do. And she and she it's funny watching it again when he asks for a pen. She's like, "Oh, there's one in my purse," and she pulls out a pen from her purse. It's really funny on a rewatch because I know that she took them all and put them in her purse. But then when we get the scene later, that's that's set before this. She comes in and she confronts him. She's confrontational. She starts saying all those awful ththings. She drops a C-bomb about his wife, calls him a freak, all these things, to the point where he's the one who punches her.
Yeah, when you see him, but because obviously the scene before started with him searching for the pen, frantically
Yeah,
going,
yeah,
"Don't
yeah.
forget this, don't forget this," and then
Because
and
she
then
comes
comes
in and she knows she's doing it because she takes all the pens first. She actually does
Yeah,
that before she starts the conversation, and then yeah, she leaves and he's like, "Oh, don't forget, don't forget." And there's that shot of her just sitting waiting in the car. She's just sitting there waiting.
yeah,
It's so
just long
perfect.
enough.
Yeah, it's just perfect. It's really devious, and obviously as we go further back, we realize the reason why she's doing this with him is because Jimmy, her boyfriend, was who he kills at the start of the story, end of the movie.
Start of the story, end of the movie.
Yeah, because he's wearing his suit. Because there's references, especially from Teddy. You shouldn't be in this car. Someone will recognize
Yeah,
this car. You shouldn't be in that suit. And she thinks it's her boyfriend pulling up at first when she gets to the bar, and it's actually him. And she knew he was making a deal with some guy called Teddy, so she actually goes along with helping him find this guy because she wants to get to Teddy.
yeah,
But it's really great stuff. But also a little bit of foreshadowing is before it goes back to the scene where he does hit her. It does end the previous scene with him like, noticing his hands a bit sore. Like he can tell that he's punched something,
yeah. You're right.
and it's a little bit of pondering. It's just like, and you almost get because obviously this comes before most of the events with Natalie in the movie, but it's or before like they happened in the timeline, but it's after we've seen all these extra, her in the diner, them like spending the night together, like all these things happen after this in the story,
Yeah,
and it really adds this extra layer of like just deviousness from
yeah. Just
her
how manipulative she is.
because she lies in bed with him, she asks about his wife, and she pretends to care about all this stuff.
Yeah, and she says it like, oh, she like they're close friends, and he's told her this countless times already.
Yeah, it's almost like as well because Teddy tries to talk him out of trusting her, and because he makes him write something, and he deliberately writes it in a different handwriting, so he knows that
Yeah,
it's not to be trusted, and then he scribbles it out, and it's almost like him setting him on the path not to trust Teddy is actively what helps him trust her more because he assumes the opposite of what he says.
yeah. Even though he was being honest.
Yeah, even though he was right, yeah, like it doesn't
Yeah,
actually matter. Like he sets him up to like believe her, even though he shouldn't. Uh, it's it's wonderfully complex, and its motivations. Like
yeah.
I love
It's
that.
all these subtleties that you just see what you see at first because that's what he sees. So you get this very surface level, but every time you get another layer, it's like, oh, that's different, and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper until they're completely different to what you thought they were at the start.
Yeah, that's exactly what the movie is. And yeah, this I love Memento the first time I saw it. I still love it. If anything, I've grown an appreciation for it because I think what the movie actually hints at is a lot. I think the ending actually plays better on repeat viewings than it does the first time.
I agree.
Because I think the first time it's not bad, but it feels like it comes out of nowhere a little bit more. Whereas on repeat viewings, you're noticing the subtleties a lot more.
You're seeing it building to it, whereas the
Yeah.
first time you're like, oh, that's what it was about.
Yeah, it doesn't quite have the hit the first time, but obviously I've
I,
seen it
I
several
think it's
times at this
because
point.
typically when you watch a film, you expect it to, it builds to this climax, whereas this isn't the climax. This is the start of the story that it's building to. So on a first watch, it kind of just feels like it's kind of subverted that.
To an extent, yeah. I think what you realize, especially on multiple viewings, is it's building to the emotional realization for him even though it's not building and because it's going backwards, but
Yeah.
it's building to his emotional realization that he's lying to himself, and he kind of accepts that, but then he forgets it, which is the
Yeah,
beautiful
he
thing.
chooses to forget it. That's it, isn't it?
And this is the beautiful thing about it, though, is that for the rest of the movie, we're kind of sympathetic to him. We're on his side. We see him as a relatively decent person. And the funny thing is even though it turns out it's a lie and he's made this malicious choice, he doesn't actually remember doing that. His intentions for the rest of the scenes in the movie actually still play
They
completely
do.
genuine.
They do, but we know that person's there is the problem then.
Oh, sure,
That,
sure. But
that's it. We know when he's angry, like he was at the end of that movie. We see, that's who he is. That's how vicious he can be. And
that's what
suddenly,
I think that's partly why it works so well on a rewatch, though, is because his intentions in all those scenes is still genuine. It's not even like it's pulled the rug out and went, "Oh no, no, no! All along he was this devious."
no, it
Yeah,
just shows there's multiple sides to people. Like he can
yeah.
be this genuine person who has these convictions, but he can also be vicious depending on his mood. The problem here is, when his mood changes, he doesn't remember what his mood was before.
Well, I think that's kind of the point, though. I think anyone who does, because it's not like a regular person who maybe has a slightly darker side, right? I think someone who goes to the breaking point where they get angry and kill someone for revenge, that changes their life forever. And they maybe keep going down a darker path and they get worse and they maybe succumb more to their dark side and they become this worse person. With him, he can't do that because it keeps resetting. So he just kind of reverts back to being his nice guy again, or nice
Yeah,
as he is.
he just builds and builds and builds, and then back to where I was.
Yeah, so it's a really fascinating examination of what happens when you can't progress down the
Yeah,
rabbit hole, as it were. And I'm not making a Matrix reference intentionally; it just kind of came out that way. But like, so I think that's really fascinating. That side to it, because even on a rewatch, I don't like. I'm not looking at him through all these earlier scenes and going, "Oh, you're an asshole. You're this vicious person."
because he's not, is he? That's it.
He's not. Yeah.
He's a vicious person in a certain moment, and I think
And even
everyone is
then,
in a moment.
and even then, it's not like I think he was like that before. I think it is. It's his wife. It's the death of his wife that's made him that way.
That's it. It's he can't deal with something in that moment, so he has to direct that anger somewhere.
It's such a powerful thing that he's went through, that he's done, and whenever he's confronted with that truth, that's when he becomes this. And it's not like before when he was normal. I think he got this angry about random things
Oh, of
and
course
had a
not.
temper and that kind of idea. I think that this is a coping mechanism for a guilt that you can't possibly deal with. Like, imagine you accidentally kill a loved one,
Yeah,
and obviously this is a really specific circumstance, but just in a more normal sense, like say you accidentally, I don't know, your child was in the driveway behind you and you just back up without looking and then you're like, oh shit, I killed my 5-year-old. Like, imagine dealing with the guilt of that, right? That is
yeah. I'm
tremendous.
sure it's happened.
Oh, it probably has. I'm sure it has, and I'm even sure I've seen it in a movie, which is maybe where it's popped out in my head. But yeah, I'm just trying to think of the most obvious. I think a
Yeah,
parent accidentally killing their child is probably the darkest you could go.
yeah. Like it'd be the something like, like accidentally banging their head on a wall or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Like on a corner of a wall or something like that.
yeah, yeah. Like, you're not actually trying to hit them. You're just trying to like put them out the way or something because
Yeah,
maybe they're near something dangerous, so you push them back and the back of their head hits the wall or something,
yeah.
and it just happens to kill them, and you have to live with that guilt. Like obviously, from normal people, again, you get to progress, you get to grieve over time. Now, admittedly, I think but like I say, that's different from regular guilt in that it's so extreme. It's such this gargantuan thing. Like if you're a married parent, your marriage is probably over. You probably can't look at each other after that.
I think that's it though. Eventually, like you say, this is about not being able to move on. I think in that eventually that person would have to try and
Well,
accept eventually that it wasn't their
no,
fault.
it's
It was an
50-50.
accident.
It's 50-50. Like, either they're going to accept it and move on and eventually have a life, or they're going to go deeper in the darker in the hole and maybe commit suicide, maybe do something dark.
Yeah,
I think there's, like, but it's a very different kind of not moving on, whereas this is a more cyclical,
it's stuck in the moment, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
That's it. All of it is stuck in that one moment after the death, because that's the very last thing he remembers. So he's still stuck in that rage.
Well, arguably, arguably it's not the death though, because the last thing he remembers is what he's now created as. That's when she died.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying
Yeah,
is the death. That
yeah.
moment that we keep seeing in the bathroom. That's the death that he's still stuck in.
And that's why he has a feeling that what Teddy's saying is right, because he has that brief, like the actual final memory he has is of her blinking.
Yeah.
Really, like, I think that's what that scene tells us, is that the last thing he actually saw before he maybe passed out and then he had this condition is they saw her blinking. So he knows deep down that actually no, that's not when she died.
Yeah.
And like parts of the actual memory of what did happen of now seeped into the Sammy story, and that's where it's sort of went in his
That's it.
head.
I love that he tells us earlier in the movie that memory is unreliable. Things
Mm.
change over time because just not intentionally. Although in this case, some of it is clearly intentional. But just if you have a memory, 10 years later, you look back at that memory, little details might have changed, but you won't even be aware that they've changed.
And arguably not all of his stuff isn't, like, obviously the Teddy stuff's intentional, the fact that he's taking stuff out of the police report, but the fact that he has his own memories like mixed with Sammy's, was that intentional? Like, was that something he intentionally tried to condition himself to do, or
I
was
I tend to look at it as yes, it was intentional because it was a way to cope. If he could think of it as someone else killed their wife, and he could think of himself as my wife died in an attack.
I don't know. I feel like it's a coping thing. It's like I don't think it's an intentional. He tried to condition himself. I think it's that he just couldn't physically handle it. So when he started like waking up, or his memory reset to help him not feel as terrible, it started to.
Yeah,
Or maybe it was intentional in that he wrote the John G raped and murdered my wife. Maybe he started that, and then because he kept seeing that, that's when the memory started to
and
change.
that's when it started to stick, and it changed
Yeah,
from there because that's what he was seeing every day, the
yeah.
repetition. And I think that's as well the repetition. It's not just once a day that he's remembering and seeing this.
Oh, it's every 20
Every
minutes.
every 10 minutes, 20 minutes,
Yeah.
whatever. Every time he looks in a mirror, it's probably fresh, and he'll see it again, and so that repetition will build quicker than normal.
It's almost, it's in a weird way. It's all because people always say time is cruel and we only have so much time, we should value it, and all this idea. This movie's almost a weird counterpoint to that. It's like, no, be thankful for time. Time is actually
Well,
really,
yeah, it's like you only feel things, you only
because
progress because of time.
yeah, if we didn't have time, if you were stuck in the moment, even if it was a good thing, you would never learn, you'd never grow, nothing would ever become anything. Like there's interesting
Yeah,
ideas.
yeah, and I think it would show even those good moments would probably get warped into something over time, with a subtle change here every so often, every little bit, every time you remember it, if something's a tiny bit different, over a million times remembering it, it would be unrecognizable from the start.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think it's just, yeah, so it's like you need the time to just have different things as well.
Here's the question, and this makes the story be sadder as well, if this is the case. But do you think the whole thing with when he was telling the story about Sammy and it was his wife, she was intentionally trying to test him when he overdosed her? Do you think that his wife did that? Like she actually was trying to test him?
I think it's what he thinks she was doing.
To cope. Okay, I could see that. But part of me even thinks, is it even sadder though if she felt that way? The way he talks about the actress from Frasier, Frasier Crane's crazy manager, because that's the actress that's playing this wife, um, Sammy's wife, not his actual
Yeah.
Leonard's wife. But like, I don't know if like if she was actually doing that, if she felt this sad and she believed that deep down in there he could be somehow better, and she was trying to like test him. Does that make it even sadder that like this entire like these two people have been completely destroyed by this condition?
Yeah, and do you know what makes it sadder as well? He at some point he's proven her right because he has changed those memories. He
Yeah, there
has
you
created
go.
new things. He has remembered. So eventually she was on some level right, which makes it really sad.
It does. So
Yeah.
I think I don't know if I like that idea more than it just being him doing it and
I,
her
th- I
not.
think I like it more from an emotional point.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Um, but no. Any other stuff that we've not talked about you want to touch upon?
No, I think we covered it. I think
Yeah.
it's an excellent movie.
It is. It's fantastic. If I'm going to critique it, if I'm going to point at it and go, hey, those things could be better. My only real observation is some of the scenes in the middle of the movie, particularly around the waking up in the hotel room where Dodd is and chasing after Dodd, and just before and after those scenes. I do think some of those scenes are really quick, and I was kind of noticing this sort of weird whiplash of going back and forth to the black and white stuff. Like, I almost feel like you could have condensed some of those scenes together and condensed some of the black and white scenes together to make it fewer but longer scenes. It felt like it was
Yeah.
going back and forth maybe just a little bit too often, because especially just given the pacing set up at the start of the movie and then what it was towards the end, like just some in the middle, the scenes were
it's
just
like the moment where he picks up the bottle and goes into the bathroom. You know, like that scene there is very short.
it could have just been the one continuous scene and just connect two of the black and white scenes so that there was right numbers of both. You could have just done that, I think, with a few of them, just to. I don't know. I felt the pacing was better when it was longer scenes.
Which it was at the start and the end.
Yeah, it was just in the
Or
middle.
in the very, very end where it was, intercutting.
Oh, but that's fine though. But that's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. So that's where they're at the same moment.
Yeah,
But that middle bit, you're right, they did speed up. Like it was building to the climax, but then it wasn't there yet.
yeah.
Strange.
That'd be my one kind of critique, just from a pacing point of view. Is I feel like those scenes felt almost like there wasn't enough meat in them to justify it having a full scene. Like, just put them together into one big scene.
The problem is you want him to have forgotten to have, all the moments.
Yeah, it's some of them. Yeah,
It's like, that moment of him looking down at the bottle and going, I don't feel drunk.
that one. I mean, like I say, you wouldn't have to condense all of them. You could pick and choose which ones make more sense. Honestly, as funny as that moment is, where he's like, he thinks he's chasing Dodd, and then he's like, oh no, he's chasing me. I think that's one you could do away with, and just have him still remember that for the rest of the chase from when it started. I think that would be enough, really.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because you have that, it ends with him knowing where he's going, so I'm going to beat you back to your place, you asshole. And that's when he goes and he gets ready with the bottle. You could just have that be one big scene rather than
I see it.
the two or three little ones. So I'm looking for kind of things I'm trying to play devil's advocate and put my critical eye on. But the characters are all interesting. I think it's got a deeply emotional and sad backbone to it, which I think gives it a lot of weight. Beyond just the simple thrills of, what's going on? Why is he killing people?
I think that's it. That first watch is the mystery of what's happened.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? And then the second time and onwards, it's the emotions behind everything that really give it, the longevity that the movie has.
It gives you the repeat viewings. It gives you, it is. It's a very. Every time I sit down to watch it, I forget how much I actually just enjoy the journey of going through it.
That was it, because this is, I haven't watched it in 4 years maybe, and I was like, yeah, I like this movie. It's good. and then I put it on. I was like, I forgot how good it was.
It's great. It's one of the things that I've loved where Nolan's went with his career. I'm a big Batman fan, obviously, so that's great. And then there's not a single of his movies that I don't like to some extent, and a lot of them I flat out just love, and I flat out love this one. And if there's one thing that I wish he maybe went back to, not for every movie, but just in terms of something that he's not had for a while, is just this smaller scale feel to it. Like,
Yeah.
everything he's done's been so big and felt so big budget that I kind of want him to do something down and dirty again.
You kind of want him to challenge himself a bit.
Just in a different way. Like, you know what? Forget the $100-200 million budget for one movie. Just go and make something that's 20-30 million. Have a tight cast, make a small thriller, and just do something like this again. Like,
Yeah, and movies like they don't take that long to make comparatively.
Comparatively, yeah.
So you could churn out one of these quite quickly and then get back to your big ones if you so wish.
That's it. Everything I'm hearing about Dunkirk is that it's up there with his best, and that it's incredibly tense, and it plays with narrative structure a lot. So I am a lot more excited. I know that I wasn't excited before, but I'm a lot more excited after this embargo lifted, and 9 to 8% is a pretty good score to start off on Rotten Tomatoes.
That it is. It's hard to complain, and it's been a solid summer so far. So.
It has, it really has. But when we're doing our end of year stuff for the year, comparing it to 2016 is going to be a really interesting, interesting little.
Comparison. I think it's safe to say it's already across the board, probably just better than most of 2016.
In terms of the mainstream stuff, if you bring in like indies and the smaller
Yeah.
stuff. It's a much more. We'll have to wait until the end of the year before we can actually compare those, because most of them tend to come towards the end of the year. But in terms of the mainstream stuff that's out in the summer specifically, like, you know, we've back to back we had Baby Driver, Spider-Man: Homecoming, and War for the Planet of the Apes.
And then
then
Dunkirk.
and then Dunkirk, which obviously I've not seen yet, but all like I was actually when I was on Rotten Tomatoes, I noticed at the side they have, you know, stuff that's still out, and War of the Apes, Spider Man, and Baby Driver were all in the '90s certified fresh. It was insane. Like this is absolutely insane. We had all these back to
Well,
back.
I'm trying to think. Last year, the best summerish blockbuster was probably Star Trek.
For us, a lot of people would argue Civil War was better, and that's fair.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Which was fine. Like I mean, as much as I didn't love that, like it is definitely nothing bad about it. But then otherwise, what did you have? You had Independence Day Resurgence.
Yeah.
You had. I think Ghostbusters was okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay. Had its moments.
That's it. There's a lot of things that they're like, yeah, they're all right, but here we've had like 4 legitimately, good to great movies in a row.
Yeah, this year, I mean, I think The Mummy and Transformers 5 are the two that stick out as being, the cynical, shitty, JD Hollywood movies that none of us want, but...
Yeah, but that's the reverse last year, where we're saying, Civil War
was
and
mostly,
Star Trek, where they're the gems that shine through, everything else is like, okay.
Yeah, last year was the opposite. It was mostly stuff that wasn't worth it, and then this year's mostly stuff that's good, so that's good. Anyway, that's Memento, so I suppose we should rate it. Out of
we should, shouldn't we?
I have no doubt we're going to end up doing all of Nolan's movies at some point, because we're both fans, and it just makes sense that eventually we'll have done all these films. But
it does.
So out of 10,
I'm gonna sell with a 9.
9. Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with 9. I think for some people, this is like Nolan's best or one of his best, and for me it is up there. Like it's not my favorite. It's close-ish. But then again, this is a guy where I love most of his movies, so there's really not.
I'd say there's not much between a lot of them, is there?
There's not much of a low scale for me, and even the very bottom of the ladder, we're still talking about a really good, solid movie that's just doesn't, for whatever reason, click with me as much as some of the others do. So that's kind of where it falls. But I do love Memento. I think it's one of his more inventive films. Although a lot of them are fairly inventive as well. So no, that's Memento. So hopefully you enjoyed us rambling on about that and talking about themes and death and loss and regret and whatever else. Like we said, this was the winner of the Patreon vote for last month. They always vote for the following month over there. The vote for next month, if I recall correctly, is what? 1987. That's what it was. I forgot what the theme was for a second.
Yeah,
it's all films from 1987. So that's what patrons are voting on right now for next month. We've got Raising Arizona in there, Broadcast News, The Untouchables, and Good Morning Vietnam. There you go. That's the 4. Yeah. So yeah, one of them will be reviewed next month. Just depends on which one wins. But if you want to go over and vote, you can head over there and have a look at Patreon.com/MailedFuzzTV. I got it out there eventually. You can have a look over there and see if anything strikes your fancy. But otherwise, guys, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates and all that kind of thing. But that is us. So thank you very much for watching. Once again, keep watching movies, and we'll see you next time.